So with that being said, I am thrilled to bring in our next guest from the Hideout in Chicago and other hats that he wears, Tim Tuten. Tim, thanks for joining us. Are you still with us there? I see a black screen.
Oh,
there he is.
I'm sorry.
Tim
I guess
Tuten.
I had the power to unmute myself.
There it is.
We're controlling that. I thought
No,
it was
that's you.
Rules.
That's you. So, Tim, we're going to kick off your segment. Actually, I'm going to have Alex play one more clip real quick. Tim and his spectacular and wonderful wife, Katie, and their legendary venue, The Hideout in Chicago, is one of the main threads of a brand new docuseries that premiered last night on National Geographic TV channel, is now, as of this morning, on Hulu. It is called City So Real. Alex, if you can run the trailer for that, let's take a quick look at what this program's all about. And then that'll be a great frame, Tim, to start our conversation.
Hello? Yes, I'm doing a documentary right now. Could you please give me a call back?
What do I think about the city? I actually love it and hate it.
That's Chicago, bro.
Yes, all one big happy family.
The cries and the complaints of the people are ignored and neglected. If Jason Van Dyke is found guilty, he will be the first Chicago police officer convicted of murder. Who will you serve? Who will you protect? Who will you protect?
What is necessary for Chicago is a vision, actual solutions for the issues we face.
Lori Lightfoot senses a late surge and has won the endorsement of progressives.
It is a breeding ground for corruption.
What do we do? Shut it down!
That happens every time one of them get killed. You're right.
It breaks my heart. I got a room full of beautiful black children and they're all trying to get out.
But this guy pulled up on the side of me and called me a black bitch.
You can't say anything without someone being offended.
Nobody's born racist, it's taught.
I have no tolerance for sexual harassment.
Well, you
Zero
tolerated it for
tolerance.
6 months.
Would you please let me finish?
Chicago is often called the Great American City.
Well, I didn't know economic development looked like more investment in jails, policing, and mass incarceration.
Move away.
All voices. One Chicago, indivisible and united for all.
We are fighting for our lives.
So that's something, huh?
Yeah, that's something.
It must be exciting to see. I know that Steve James, and for those of you who are documentary fans, know his work going back all the way a long time ago to Hoop Dreams. But just program and film and program after film, and the whole team at Cartemquin in Chicago, just a global treasure of nonfiction storytelling, and they spent a bunch of time sort of incubated inside of their hometown, inside of Chicago, to try to tell a story of Chicago. Very similar to how we talk about ecosystems, talk about the interconnected nature of all of our sort of communities and businesses and government, and just how that, everything just really fits together. And so the Hideout and Tim, you and Katie are a big part of that story in City So Real, which again debuted on last night on National Geographic, is on Hulu as of today. And I think one reason they did that is because Hideout is very indicative of what an ecosystem is and a community, center is, So tell us a little bit about the Hideout. Let's just start there. What is the Hideout for those of us who haven't had a chance to come to Chicago and spend time there?
Thanks, Michael. Okay, so there's a lot going on here. There's a lot to discuss here because it's a big city, it's a big country. There's a lot going on, right? And so there, like whenever I hear a question or whenever I'm talking to somebody, I try to pull from them like certain things they say so that I could respond specifically to a phrase they made, right? So first thing I'll just say is I was not in that trailer you just saw, which I didn't know you were going to show it, but I'm glad you did. The series is on now. It debuted last night. You could hear my voice, okay? You didn't see me in that trailer, but I'm like the one, Chicago's the great American city. And that is that I didn't know, I had nothing to do with the production of the film. That was all Steve and Zach Piper and Kartemkin and all of them. But it's like, that kind of exemplifies how a lot of the voices in Chicago that are screaming and yelling, you don't see them, right? We hear them. If you're listening, like if you like music, you listen for the bass part, you listen for the drum part, you focus your hearing. And you're like, oh, everyone's watching the lead singer, but damn, that back line is awesome, right? And that back line is the thunder from down under. It's the beat that keeps the music going. And so in Chicago, it's like this crazy thing. And we call it the Great American City. I didn't make that up. There's an old line from who knows where, Carl Sandburg or somebody, that said, New York is the greatest city in the world. But Chicago's the greatest American city. We'll take it, right? We're the second city. And so we have this feeling like we got something to prove. And it comes from this really crazy pioneer spirit of America, which was beautiful and inspiring and DIY, but it was also, kicking the ass of anybody that's in your way, including Native Americans or anybody. So it's a complicated, and this city's so real, Chicago, and it's mentioned in one of the episodes of the movie when Chase Smith, who is Rhymefest, is out on the street with a megaphone in episode 5 during the Black Lives Matter protest. And he says, this city was founded by DuSable. Jean-Baptiste DuSable was from Haiti, African origin, French speaking. He's the founder of Chicago. We have a Black beginning, okay? John Kinsey and all that stuff, that came later, okay? Those were the settlers, all right? So the city of Chicago is a city founded by, and Jean-Baptiste, who was a French fur trapper from Haiti of African origin, he's not an African-American, right? Okay? It was pre-America, right? So before our country, this idea of what an American is, and this is an issue that Kartemkin Films, all right, has been dealing with throughout their history. It's like before there was an America, there were people, and these people came and formed us, and the white Europeans took over every time the history, whatever. So it's kind of crazy when you live in Chicago. We grew up with Curtis Mayfield, man. We grew up with the Dells, and we grew up with the 5 Stair Steps, and we grew up with Mavis Staples. We grew up in a soul city, man, right? And that city, though, comes from the South, moving up from the Great Migration. I know I'm going there, right? I'm like, but you cannot. And so the Great Migration that comes from all over the world, sure, it's from Ireland and Italy and Poland, and we love the internationalism of Chicago. But the real foundation of the music is gospel, blues, jazz, soul, all that came up from New Orleans, by the way. I'm sorry they're not here, but don't you know that we never stop making that connection, those of us that live here. And when we hear the horn of the trumpet, we're like, oh yeah, Louis Armstrong came up here in the 1920s, all right? And so, and he kind of built his rep in Chicago before he went to New York. So anyway, that might seem all over the map, but if you notice, even in the trailer, and the actual series is 5 hours long, in only 1 minute, you saw a mariachi band. You saw a blues player. Even Willie Wilson, one of the candidates running for mayor, he's a gospel singer too. And he owns a bunch of McDonald's, okay? So everyone's gigging in Chicago, but everybody's either listening to music, checking out music. That's the rhythm of our city. That's the rhythm of our place. And so it's stunning to many of us over history that we're like, how are you talking about politics, but your political campaign events start with music? How are you doing? It's everywhere. It's so over sensory in Chicago, the music. All right. And so, anyway, and it's you. Anyway, sorry, I'll stop there.
No, you're good. You're good. And for our audience, they should know that Tim, you and I have known each other for longer than we'd probably care to admit. And, you have instructed me to rein you in if you get on a tangent. So if anybody in the audience thinks I'm being rude to Tim by reining him in a minute, just know that this is how we roll. But I want to ask you, in the context of the program, City So Real is sort of documenting a critical moment for the Hideout, and using that as part of, again, the broader story of all these other things that are happening, you know, across the city during this mayoral election. You know, we've talked a lot in this program, we've talked a lot over the last couple of years about the growing appreciation and awareness for, whether you call them grassroots music venues, whether you call them neighborhood music venues. Just talk a tiny bit about like what is distinctive about the Hideout. Why is a Hideout so beloved, not only in Chicago, but why does it have this international reputation? And what were the challenges that you faced in terms of the city that, again, are documented in this docuseries, but are sort of, you know, the tension of navigating literally development and, you know, sort of competitive infrastructure. So Hideout, real quick, what's unique about the Hideout? And then what was the challenge that you were having to face that gets documented in this film?
So something, a kind of like subliminal undertone, kind of philosophy in Chicago that sometimes you see it in a big way, sometimes little. We have this thing where we're an American city. So we have, for instance, Daniel Burnham was one of the designers of the city, and he said, make no small plans, okay? So we built, you know, Grant Park and Lincoln Park and Jackson Park and boulevards and a grand plan, right? We built the tallest skyscrapers in the world, right? At the time, the Sears Tower, the Willis Tower. We built the busiest airport in the world, O'Hare Airport. We have the largest water reclamation district in the world, okay? So we pride ourselves in building big. We call ourselves the city of big shoulders, all right? City of broad shoulders, right? And so we love big and strong, okay? But there's this thing, and I know everything I'm talking about is a reflection of America, the world in general. But in Chicago, we believe in this idea also. Tallest building in the world, ironically, is a style, international style, Mies van der Rohe, who came here, who said less is more, okay? Get rid of all the frilly stuff. That's just kind of imperialistic, ancient, you know, let's like strip it down to steel and glass, okay? We're the city of Frank Lloyd Wright, who believed in organic architecture. Use the materials that you have locally, and then, you know, those things. So we believe in the storefront church. We believe in like the local diner, the local restaurant. I know other cities do too. We just happen to be, New York is the largest population, LA second, Chicago's third. So we're always like, so we know that Cleveland and in Detroit and in St. Louis, they got a lot of this happening too. But we see ourselves as like really identifying with these kind of things because of kind of our size and magnitude. So we actually believe in the local joint, the neighborhood bar, the corner tavern. So we think like, you know what, down in the skyscrapers, those idiots don't understand us. In fact, they look down upon us. But I do work in welding and I will help build that building. We build the actual structures that oppress us. And then we go to our neighborhood tavern and we like bitch about that, or we organize. So we're a union town. And we're like, if we're going to build it, we need to get money. If we're going to be teachers, we have one of the most powerful, strongest local unions in the country. If we're going to be musicians, we're a community. We actually in Chicago, we always love the fact that when people talk about New York and LA, all right, they're just like, oh, it's so competitive there. It's out of control, man, right? But in Chicago, if you're a comedian, and I know there's assholes everywhere, all right? But a lot of times people are like, hey, I'm doing a show over at the Hideout. I'm doing a set at Kohl's. Come on over and jump in and do a bit, all right? If you're a musician, we are always doing collaborations. I mean, this week, Josh Caterer from the Smoking Popes was with John San Juan, and he was with John Perrin. They put a thing together. He's from NRBQ. They put a trio together. Why? Because we're in quarantine. Let's like do some cover versions, you know? So we always have a community, an organizing, a sense of coming together. That's why the last president, he was a community organizer, and he became president. This president, he's the guy who lives up in the penthouse in New York City, top down, right? Complete opposites. And so in Chicago, our musicians, we love the fact you come from the street. Never forget that. That's who we are. So even if you become Chance the Rapper, even if you become Kanye, who we love, okay, he comes from us. But he went to LA with the Kardashians, right? We know this shit happens, right? We're happy, but we're very upset. We care about you. We want to help, all right? So, but it's like, I don't know if this makes sense, but what is the Hideout? The Hideout's nothing. The Hideout's a dive. The Hideout is a little bar on a side street, Wabansia Street, in an industrial area. So what? It's been there since the 1880s. Okay, that's old, right? It's an old house. We believe that with nothing in a place like that, that's where the real beauty and magic happens. And it's not magic. People come together in humble abodes. You call it a dive. We say, yeah, we're a dive because we're deep. Because we dig down deep, man. If you're a record collector, you love to take a deep dive, right? You know, so we look at dives so we don't look at a dive in Chicago as a bad thing. We look at it as a jewel, okay? As a treasure. So anyway, what's the Hideout? We're a nondescript place, a house, right? But inside, and it's the same looking place that it's been since the 1930s, okay? And it's been called the Hideout since it was made legal in 1934, all right? And before that, it wasn't legal. It was a public house, all right? And we just went ahead, and they just went ahead and did it. So little storefronts, little neighborhood taverns, little places like that, people come together, they talk. They're like, let's do a band. But in Chicago, we organize. So we organize a band. And then people start to make music. You know, there's a beautiful new book out right now by Jeff Tweedy from Wilco. And he just like did his little thing at the Hideout the other night with Nick Offerman. And it's just called How to Write One Song. Okay. And we're very lucky because we live in a city. Jeff Tweedy lives here and a bunch of the members of Wilco and a bunch of that whole group of people made this, right? Who all like kind of interact. And that's a classic example of an interaction that people in other cities might know about, right? And what he is saying, like you sit in a bar, you sit in a place, you get together with your friends and you're like, hey, that would be a funny joke. Hey, let's make a movie about that. Hey, let's do a song. Hey, let's make an album. Because Chicago is a manufacturing city. So the Hideout is a simple little place located in an industrial area. You might not ever see it. Just like in the movie, just like in the series, City's So Real. What is real? Is it the big, tall skyscrapers you see? Or is it the thing that's growing underground? Is it the roots? So we're the roots. We're down there, okay? We're the seeds, okay? You don't always see it, but it's the most fertile thing in the world. And that's what Illinois is known for, the most fertile soil in the world. All right. And if you do that right, if you take care of that garden, and we are called in Herbs and Hortus, the Garden City is our nickname. If you can fertilize and manage that garden, you can create beautiful, beautiful things. And it all comes from the grassroots, from the ground up. Okay. So we're one of that. So the Hideout's just one. The members of Civil, the Chicago Independent Venue League, that means that there are other places, the Empty Bottle, Reggie's, okay, Rosa's Lounge on the west side. We're all part of that, okay? So together, we make this great city, right? But we're all there. But when you feel like you are alone, you're a flower that can wilt without water. But when you are together, then you're a bouquet, okay? So I can use a million cliches, obviously, but it's like, yeah. So so the Hideout is not so sometimes people go, you're a legacy, you know? We look at it like, nah, actually we're just the little footnote and a sentence. I got a line in that interview, okay? Or something like that. In the 5 hours of the City's So Real, you know, they filmed Katie and I and the Hideout for like 100 hours. Out of that, they got about 2 minutes, okay, of me screaming and yelling, all right? That always seems to come across well. Or it always seems whatever. It's a wake up in the middle of a 5-hour documentary. So my point is, I'm a little piece, but together, and this isn't a cliche, I'm not together. We have a million little pieces in Chicago, and they all come together, and that creates a mighty orchestra. All right, and if we do it together, like it's like amazing. Sorry.
So no. So you mentioned Civil, the Chicago Independent Venue League, which came out of the crisis. That's very nice. Came out of the crisis, which is documented in the Nice. I like that.
This is
Doc,
Washington, D.C. glass I got from Jeff Custer in Washington, D.C. There's D.C. And he's at Hellbender Brewing, which is
Nice.
my favorite little brewery in D.C. And I am going to now take a Civil beer that Goose Island in Chicago has made to raise money for the Chicago Independent Venue League. And I'm going to pour it into this glass. This is the high school teacher in me.
there you go.
I'm going to show how together the glass is full.
That's
Right. And
Friday has started. Very nice. We've opened up Friday. All right. So quickly. All right. Let's get through speed round here because there's a bunch of things I want to make sure we get to before we move into a DJ Ambush's segment. So Civil comes together. So Chicago's got this amazing network of independent venues, probably more so than any major city, in the country in terms of being able to fight off the sort of massive consolidation of venues and promotions. So there's this kind of organic independent network, this organic network of independent venues that are neighborhood based and being able to, stay afloat and potentially thrive. So the city makes a big move though, a couple years ago that necessitates the creation of Civil. Talk a little bit about what the city was up to and why it was critical for the venues to come together and unite for the first time and to speak with one voice.
So in Chicago, as in America, we are in this conflict right now, okay? And the conflict is whether small is beautiful or bigger is better, okay? Now, all of us indie rock people know bigger isn't better. As a matter of fact, once a band gets big, we don't like them anymore, right? So, but I know, you know what? Chicago, second city, we're comedians. And if we're not comedians, we all think we can be funny, okay? I mean, literally, the way that we think in Chicago, I love that Dessa song, okay, that she just did. But when I saw Tyranny, Tyranny, Tyranny coming across, I immediately, in my mind, I said, Melania Trump only had Barron, but had she had a girl, it'd be called Tyranny Trump, all right? Tiffany was already named by Marla Maples, okay? Anyway, Tyranny Trump, the daughter that Melania never had. So that's the kind of way we think. We make fun of people in power. Okay. We love to do that. A lot of us. All right. And we get mad in Chicago, especially when you sell out, to the big corporation. But at the same time, Chicago's an American city. So we are in competition with the rest of the richest country on the earth to obtain the most corporate headquarters of anybody, right? So the Lincoln Yards project exemplifies that concept. Lincoln Yards is literally designed after Hudson Yards. They always call it yards. The only things called yards are prison yards and huge mega developments. So in New York City, and if New York's got it, there's always people in Chicago that are like, well, then we ought to get that. And word thought in Chicago is like, all the comedians on Saturday Night Live are from Chicago. We send it to New York, okay? We don't need their stuff here, okay? They're lucky that we provide them with the greatest, musicians and the greatest artists and comedians. Anyway, so the Lincoln Yards project modeled after Hudson Yards and Nashville Yards in Nashville, and the other projects in Los Angeles, Dallas, and Austin that they build are the classic example of these mega developments that developers come to a city and they say, look, we want to build billions of dollars worth of tall buildings. Would you like that in your city? Because if you do, give us money. You give us $1 billion, we'll give you $5 billion. How's that sound? Okay. I'm not making that up, okay? That's what Amazon said. Amazon HQ too. They said to America, you give us everything and we'll choose one of your cities. And Chicago really wanted that because there are some people in Chicago that actually believe that is a good thing. So the Amazon HQ2 deal that happened a few years ago, Chicago decided to sell over 50 acres of its property so that they could prepare for the Lincoln Yards development. And that is, so I don't want to go all off on this, but the point is the city tore down a number of factories and made way to create a huge 50-acre space so that Amazon HQ2 could move in. Amazon didn't come. Okay. They decided to like fake us out. In fact, they decided not even to go to Washington, D.C. I think they decided to go to Northern Virginia. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Down
And
the street.
a little bit of Nashville. And for a while, they even talked about going to Queens until AOC took over. So the thing is that now we have this space. A developer, Sterling Bay, took it over. They bought it. They said that they would build 12 buildings that exceed 45 stories with a 65-story iconic tower. And the city then put together a deal so that they would get over $1 billion in tax increment financing. The Hideout is located 25 feet from that development. And so the Hideout, literally, we were just like, this is bullshit, right? And anyway, if we're going to build a $5 billion project, let's do it like Daniel Burnham did. The World's Fair was on the south side. Let's develop the entire south side of Chicago, the entire west side of Chicago. Why are you sticking it in between Lincoln Park and Bucktown? But they insisted, they pushed it through. And on the last meeting of Rahm Emanuel, when he was mayor, they got it through. Okay. So in the meantime, what the Hideout did, what Katie came up with was, you know what? One little bar can't stand against a $5 billion development, but 30 bars can, 30 venues can. We united. All right. And we united and we said this development was going to include the Live Nation Mega Center. And that mega center was going to have 6 different auditoriums ranging in size from 20,000 to 5,000 to 1,000 down to a 100-person comedy club across the street from the Hideout. And we're like, why would the city subsidize an outside company building a massive development when you already have these treasures, these gems all throughout the city? So that started Chicago Independent Venue League way back in 2018. The show, the documentary City So Real shows that. And that later on, when the pandemic happened, we were already organized together, which is an amazing thing. And then we helped to work with the people in Washington and New York and the National Independent Venue Association. Like, it isn't because of us, but it's part of a nationwide movement of small and independent venues that were feeling that same kind of situation. The onslaught of huge corporate development into their cities.
And I think, Tim, that's what's so important about the work that you and Katie and your entire crew in Chicago did. A lot of people put a lot of work into trying to think about what does it mean to come together as a network? What does it mean to try to put together a political agenda? What does it mean to take on really difficult odds in terms of a really tough political fight? But it really did provide sort of a template that when NEVA came together to respond to the global crisis, that there was a lot of learnings from what you had done sort of almost as a proof of concept in Chicago that then could be taken to scale. And I know that you guys have been very active in NEVA, which is I've said on the show repeatedly, I think the Save Our Stages campaign is clearly the most effective music advocacy effort I've seen in 22 years of doing this work, but I just love the through line again to this notion of the Hideout really representing what a lot of us would like to think of the best of music in terms of community, in terms of being a platform not only for music and for comedy, but also for political organizing, for nonprofits, really being a resource for the community. And then really taking that lead, which again, I think is documented, very nicely in this program, helping take that lead to say, well, we have to be able to fight for this. This means something. And it's just not just about economics. This is about something bigger.
It is something bigger, and it's not about economics. And I think it's important to note that this pandemic, the shutdown, caused a lot of us to really unite and organize together. We had time to talk, right? And so when you look at Katie Tuten, my partner, okay, and you look at how she was just named to the Venues 2020 All-Star list, which is Polestar, along with Dana Frank, who is the president of NEVA. Katie and Dana are both on that list. The other 49 people are our Live Nation senior vice president. It's the guy who runs the Dodgers, the person who runs it's all massive 50,000 capacity stadiums and convention centers. And then there's 2 people, Dana Frank from First Avenue in Minnesota, and Katie Tuten, who is from the Hideout. What it has done, it is showing the big city developers and the big time operators. There is a movement across the city of over 3,000 independent venues, and it got loud. And this Save Our Stages actually sent a message to Washington. They expected to get 50,000 emails. They got over 2 million. that the people, so it is an example that a grassroots organizer like Barack Obama can go on to become president. That's how we think in Chicago. And then we think that like a little dive bar in Chicago, if we talk to another local place in the 930 Club in DC, I know that's not a dive, it's much bigger. All right, in the First Avenue in Minneapolis, if we got to unite together, we can send a message to these people, okay? That your stadiums and your mega developments, actually, they don't add to the quality of life of a big city. And actually, they're not an economically intelligent thing to do. And that's where they always look at the money. And when they looked at us united, they were like, holy geez, the 35 venues in Chicago have 3 million customers. They have 70,000 employees year round. That's what this kind of thing, this pandemic showed them. And so some city, especially local political leaders, they started saying, geez, I don't have a stadium in my ward, but I do have 5 music venues. Yep. You know, maybe I need to think about that. So we are trying, there are 2 people out of 50 that are like on the venue all-stars. But what it's saying is there is a movement and there is a rethinking. What are cities for, okay? Are they for big mega developments or are they for neighborhood development to make a quality of life? So that's why the little dive bar, the little local place, the corner tavern, it's dangerous. And it's important because people intrinsically feel connected to it the way they don't feel and the way the corporations don't feel to us, right? So we're in this thing right now, okay? It is a really important economic and cultural transformational moment here. How are we going to come out of this pandemic? Okay, if we could save our stages, we're really saying you're acknowledging the significance of independent creative culture. And okay, sorry.
No, Tim, it's always great to see you, and thank you so much for sharing everything. And we got through roughly 30% of the questions that we had planned, but we will have you back when in the new year and talk about 2021 plans. Okay. Give our love to Katie and the team there at the Hideout. And
total love, Michael. And I just want to really say what you have been doing for years, Future Music Coalition. When we talk about, hey, we've been talking to Austin and New Orleans, and we've been talking to the folks in Minneapolis, and the reason we know them is because of what you have done. You brought everyone together before any of this happened years ago. So, and I'm not just saying this, right? The Future Music Coalition from the last 12, 15 years, you guys have been pulling venues together. And now we're in this moment. So it's another example of how people think this stuff just happened. This conversation's been going on for a long time. And because you built up such a strong community and network of people, now we have a national network, which is influential and essential. Okay.
Thank you, Tim. That's very kind of you to say. It's not me. It takes a village. But thank you. All right.
So we are the Village Tap, the Village Bar, the local village. Oh, wait. We're the local bar of the global village, right?
There it is. Right. All righty. Thank you, Tim.